Welcome back to the Liberate Yourself podcast after a hiatus for the retrograde and eclipse season. This podcast is a platform for those of us around the world who are cultivating personal sovereignty in these transitional times to tell our stories of unfolding through metaphysical practices and modalities. This season, I'll be having conversations about astrology, psychedelics, magic, and energy work with my upcoming guests that I'm really excited to share with you. This transmission is a solo show, however, because I wanted to take the opportunity to welcome you to Season 2 and recap the wild ride that the summer of 2018 took us on and the massive up-leveling that came from that. I'm sharing a bit about my take on this and a personal story of extreme synchronicity. Remember to visit tristadedman.com and click podcasts for the show notes, and if you like what you hear, give the podcast a positive review on iTunes, or you can become a patron on the Liberate Yourself Patreon page. I hope you enjoy my thoughts and reflections on this season's experiences. Welcome back to the Liberate Yourself podcast, guys. I'm coming at you from the other side of this crazy eclipse retrograde portal we just went through in the summer of 2018. I hope everyone is doing well and has a clearer sense of your direction and your purpose and where you're going. I know we've all been through a lot. We've been collectively dropping things that we thought were true, things that we thought were concrete, both personally and in our collective psyche. There were 5 planets retrograde this summer, 5 to 6 at any given time, retrograde this summer. And, a lot of astrologers have been talking about this. I'm sure a lot of people who follow astrology are sick of talking about it, but I wanted to address it here because this was a really important time period for all of us, not just because the planets were retrograde, but because there were 3 eclipses in a row as well. And I know that you felt it. If you found your way to this podcast, I know you felt it. The reason I'm calling it a portal is because having these eclipses literally opened up I feel like they opened up a new timeline, and this time period felt like what's been coming to me visually and conceptually was that we were getting an energetic upgrade. And depending on the paradigm that you follow, if you're following sort of the ascension timeline, the fact that we have more access to higher frequencies, higher vibration, or just astrologically, no matter what metaphysical system you look at, honestly, it all points to the fact that we are leveling up, that we are evolving very quickly as a species, as a human collective, and being introduced to new ways of being on an energetic level or on a literal level. This, of course, the energetic, the non-physical plays out in the physical, so it's all connected. But I did want to address this time and just to let anyone know who has not been aware or who has not received the information that there was a huge change this summer, that everything is okay. Everything that you have been through is for a purpose. Mars was retrograde and it was going over it passed the south nodes of fate. So the north and south node are an axis point where the eclipses happen, actually. So a newer full moon on the nodal axis is an eclipse. And so on the south node, essentially that is what has come before. That's what we are used to. It's the past. It's behind us. And so what was happening is Mars has gone retrograde and has gone over it twice. So what was it? The full moon in Aquarius eclipse on, I believe it was July 27th. That was at the same time that was happening. Mars went over the south node. And I know that everyone felt this. This was the most potent one, especially for me anyway, and from what I hear. for most people. Mars going over this point is like severing, because it's hot, it's angry, it's assertive, it's, cutting male energy, very, very yang energy going. Anyway, I'm rambling. So going when it went across the south node, what happened is sort of like the bottom dropped out from underneath us, or it could feel like that. Lots of things went away around this time. You may have experienced relationships ending. You may have, lost a job. You may have had to change location or move location. You may have lost a loved one. That's what happened with me. I'll tell you about my personal story here in a little bit. But wherever Aquarius is in your chart, whatever house holds Aquarius, that is the part of your life, the section of your life that was impacted by this. And so all of this, when things leave, it just creates space for the new to be born. And so that is the purpose of transits like this, especially these very intense ones. We wouldn't have been able to move forward and evolve and progress to a new way of living and a new way of being without dropping the old. Dropping the old is uncomfortable. It hurts. Like I said, I feel like this was an energetic upgrade. So think about, at least for us PC users, whenever Windows needs to update, you have to sit there and wait a little bit, because it's doing, it's I don't even know what it's doing. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but it's essentially clearing out the things that don't work anymore and then installing new software so that the machine can work better, can work more efficiently and cleaner. And so I feel like energetically, that's what's happened with us. There was just this huge sweep. I feel like the eclipses were this kind of sweep that cleaned us out, cleared away the old debris that was not going to help us going forward. And it created this space of possibilities, this liminal space of possibilities. And if you're feeling still, we're in September now when this is going out, but if you're still feeling like lost and like you don't know the path forward, like it's not clear, that's totally okay. I feel like this is sort of almost a holding pattern, holding space. But the nice thing is that September, we're in Virgo season, which is wonderful. We definitely need the help of this energy, the meticulous, focused earth energy, to take it one step at a time. Virgo loves to make lists and complete tasks and put in meticulous analytical focus to the details, the important details of a plan. So now that, hopefully you have a new version of your vision, or you have an entirely new vision, and your heart has been opened up and you have more of a sense of your purpose. Now, this month especially, there's the Sun and Mercury are in Virgo. So that Mercury in Virgo is going to help us again, put the pieces together, communicate the details, and solidify our messages and the way that we go forward. And there's also a grand Earth trine with Saturn in Capricorn that's helping us build this foundation that has staying power. And then also Uranus in Taurus, which is bringing these huge shifts in how we approach building, I feel. How we approach going forward, so that, we don't do things. I feel like he's over there kind of helping us not to rebuild the way that we originally had things. That foundation is gone. It would be kind of like, oh God, I don't know why this is coming to me, but when you have people who live on trailers or whatever, these shack houses down on the river, and it keeps flooding out, and then they just keep rebuilding. That's what Uranus is helping us not to do, I feel. It's go farther inland, or go somewhere where it's go uphill, go up, ascend, go to somewhere dry land. where it's more stable and quality of life is better. So September is definitely poised to help you with that. So definitely utilize this energy. And again, the path forward may not be clear for you, and I'm starting to think that it never will be. It's just about, it really is about the present moment. It really is about being grateful for what we have, and all we really have is the present moment. Our mind has a way of projecting into the past or the future only, and what this upgrade has helped us do, and I'm sure you feel the same way too if you're listening to this, that now is a time to follow our heart, as cliche as that sounds. Insert whatever phrase makes sense to you, but our higher selves are driving now, are driving this vehicle that we call our body. It's imperative that we put our mental mind, our mind is a great tool. It really is. But it's really there just for, its best work is done when it discerns and shows preference in response to your heart driving or your heart leading the way. I hope that makes sense. So allowing and receiving and feeling into where we need to go next, not trying to project and plan and figure out. We actually don't need to do that much figuring out. All we need to do is find what brings us joy, what brings us evidence of the love that's already inherent within us, sharing love, sharing wisdom. And as long as we're doing this, the rest is going to show up. It really is about surrender. So I don't know, that lesson came forward for me very poignantly during this time, is that you just got to surrender at a certain point and allow. And allowing and receiving and accepting our really divine feminine energy, which is the catalyst for all creativity. It's where all creativity begins. Creation, of course, takes both the masculine and feminine, the yin and yang. But that was a real focus for me, and I'm sure a lot of people as well, is to bring in the power of that divine feminine energy and just accept, let things flow instead of just trying to do all the time. It really, there needs to be a balance of being as well. So again, you may be feeling some extreme cognitive dissonance, and guess what? That's really good. As any of us that know or who practice magic know, is that's really the effect that you want, is to create dissonance in your consciousness and your psyche, because that means you've opened up to a whole new level of possibilities, whole new level of reality. And again, allowing just sort of helps you traverse that place, helps you navigate it and flow with it. So I was actually pretty busy because I natally, in my natal chart, I have 5 planets retrograde. I was born during a time like this. Yeah, I found myself sort of in my element in a way. And I did take a hiatus from recording the podcast. I needed to sort of give it space to come back and be reborn. And I actually poured my content. I love creating inspirational and self-empowering content. So I actually focused on my Instagram account, which I'm loving because it's a great tool for discovering and magnetizing to you people who are of, like mind and like soul, and to make really, really great connections. I'm actually finding Instagram has been a great resource for finding great guests for this podcast. So I really focused on up-leveling my game there, creating a lot of content. I also, through my work with Sarah Beta from Transmission 6, we had a magical consultation, which ended up, like I was saying with dissonance, working with her, I mean, I do my own magical practice and my own inner work, but it definitely amplified that. I went through, like, for a good week, it was just huge, synchronistic, up-leveling, realizing that realizing another level of how the universe works, basically. I think that's the only way I can put words to it right now. Through magical consulting with her, what came through was that I needed to redesign my brand, my website. Well, I took it that far, but basically bring in more lighter feel, lighter colors for where I am now. And I'm a brand and web designer, so like this makes sense. And I actually went through the process of redesigning my brand colors and feel, and completely rebuilt my website in about a month's time, which was great fun. I love doing that every year or two as I evolve. My online presence evolves as well. And again, it's what I love to do for people. So I actually, find it fun doing it for myself. But this was a lot of work just to kind of nail down what my vision is, experiment with what my content creation is like and what my message is for people, how I connect with people. And it's working. I mean, I'm finding so many wonderful souls out there that are doing incredible work and giving them support, and I'm receiving support. And that's what it's all about, guys. Really reach out to people. Don't hide anymore. That's the thing right now. Empaths, sensitives, intuitives, those of us that are, consider ourselves light workers, or that are working to sort of hold the light and help the consciousness of the earth rise up. We're all coming forward right now. That's sort of what this season helped us do as well, is to actually step forward, actually share our gifts, like for real, share them, not just hide in the shadows and not feel comfortable talking about what we do or like we're the weirdos or whatever. No, this is the time that we come forward and help people either that are just a couple steps behind us, or people in the mainstream, our families, our acquaintances that really don't know what's going on, really have no concept or context for what is happening energetically, because everyone is feeling this. We are a collective connected consciousness as humans, so everyone is feeling this. It just depends on what their own singular consciousness, how it's being interpreted. Definitely stop hiding. We need you. We need you to come forward and share your gifts with either your local community, with the global community. However you can do that, it's time. Like, this is go time. But of course, in a balanced way, not in the old masculine dominated paradigm. It's time to bring in and mix the two, both the feminine and masculine, the being and the doing, and the yin and the yang, when you're completing things. And that's how, we're going to create more of a balance in how all of us operate in society. And I believe that's how society is going to change. And it does start with you. Again, another cliched statement, but it just ends up being true. When we do our own work and we focus inward and we remake ourselves, we transform ourselves, that does have a ripple effect, and it affects all of humanity. And when you heal yourself, you're able to then help others heal themselves. And I think that's just so important, is to empower oneself so that we can all rise up and go forward. Okay, so if you're interested, I wanted to share my personal story from this crazy portal summer that helped me sort of get a lot of clarity with what my role is to move forward. And it's just it's one of those crazy strings of synchronicities I just wanted to share. And sometimes when you share things that are very highly subjectively true to yourself, they can sound really mundane. So I apologize if it does, but I'm going to share anyway, just for the sake of being vulnerable and being open. And I invite you to share your story with me as well. I would love to hear what you've been going through and how it's helped you to go forward with more clear intentions. You can go to the show notes for this transmission of the podcast and leave your story in the comments, or you can email me. Hello at liberate or no, it's Trista at liberateyourselfpodcast.com. During this time that Mars was going over the South Node, severing sort of collective belief systems, etc., severing things from our lives, I received the message that my dear grandfather was close to passing, and he did pass, and this was such a graceful grieving process. It can be that way. There were of course tons of emotions, highs, lows, the whole spectrum. But it really couldn't have happened in a more graceful way. I'm from Texas originally, so this is back in Texas. And I'm in Seattle currently. I wasn't able to go back, and that's okay. Before I left Texas a couple years ago, I actually got to spend a day by myself with my grandfather, and I got to tell him what a great job he did basically raising me, because he and my grandmother were instrumental in my childhood, and I basically lived with them when I was very young, my formative years. And they were just the epitome of goodness and pure kindness, unconditional love. And I realized through this process, that learning that he was passing, that he was the person that I was around more than anyone else in my life. And he was just such a wonderful, giving, kind presence. And I'm not being biased. Like, that is what anyone that ever met him would say. He was really a pillar of the community, and just known for just being so kind and helping so many people out. So the grieving process was graceful because it was just the best situation it could have possibly been. He made it to 97 years old. And was healthy for the majority of that. I really couldn't ask for anything better. And he also was able to, he passed in his sleep, surrounded by his family, Of course I was sad. Of course I went through all the emotions, but part of me was just so grateful to have been touched by this person and the spirit running through it. And what came to me in meditation and in guidance was what was embodied in him, this goodness that had an effect on everyone that it touched, and the world, I'm sure. Whatever was embodied in him lives on in me. And it's partly up to me to carry that on, to embody that for an entirely new generation, for a new world. And it was just so beautiful to realize that, and the synchronicities that happen. So this is the same week that Sarah and I decided to have a magical consultation, basically amplifying my own magic. I won't go into the details of what the work was, because with magic you don't want to share things that are super personal like that. But she had asked me to write down a list of things describing how I am like something. But she asked me to write down a list of things and then to look for these things, these truths in the world around me, in my external world, as I went through the week. And at first the list was so it's abstract, so I wasn't really sure how I was going to see symbols and synchronicities and things, but I had an open mind. And towards the end of the week, I just felt really creative, and I was drawing, and there was a phrase that I drew that was, it had to do with the work we were doing. And I decided to, for some reason, draw a little geometric blue butterfly. Geometric as in it was created out of triangles. not like realistic. And I put that at the bottom of it. I sent her a picture because we were sharing pictures of, symbols all week long. And she gets that the next day. I believe the next day was my grandfather's funeral. She's texting me because she gets that photo. We're talking about butterflies. She's using blue butterfly emojis. My mother is at the funeral on my behalf. She sends me a picture of, so my father actually passed away when I was younger. My father, as in my grandfather's son, who also embodied this kindness and goodness and this spirit that I'm carrying on. So she sent me, they were at the cemetery, and she sent me an image of a photo of my dad's tombstone, gravesite, whatever you call it, headstone. And on the headstone, someone had placed a little figurine of a geometric blue butterfly. But anyways, this very obvious, it looked exactly, maybe not exactly, but extremely similar to the butterfly that I had drawn the day before. I texted my mother. I was like, because my face was melting. When you experience these kind of, this dissonance with the fabric of reality and you realize it really is a mirror for your inner world. I was like, who put that there? Apparently my dad's cousin had just decided to bring this little figurine. And anyway, of course, like there were just blue butterflies everywhere that I was seeing, in artwork or window decals or what have you everywhere that week. So it was just a really beautiful sign, and also a sign of metamorphosis, which is something that that had been coming to me in deep meditation and working on as far as healing my emotional body and my past. So this was my beautiful, incredible story that I'm happy to share over the eclipse, of gracefully grieving. And sort of, it was a changing of the tides. I feel like what happens when one generation passes is we realize that, okay, it's now time for us to step up and fill in the role or carry on the role as best we can for the coming generations. Thank you for listening to my thoughts and personal story, guys. I hope you've enjoyed what I had to say in this welcome back message for season 2. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app to hear some insightful conversations I'm going to be having with benevolent souls doing good work in the world. Remember to visit tristadedman.com to check out my new website and services, including branding and web design for visionary entrepreneurs and astrology readings to help you navigate these new times with a clear compass. Listeners of this podcast get 20% off readings with me by using the code LIBERATEME at checkout. Also, click podcast for the show notes and sign up for the email list in the sidebar to get every transmission delivered straight to your inbox. As always, take care out there.